I grew up in Prayagraj in what is UP, Uttar Pradesh in North India, and schooled at the St. Joseph's College there in Allahabad. Thereafter, I went for my mechanical engineering at BITS Pilani, which is a well-known engineering institution in India. And ever since I grew up in my childhood, my parents would always, hold out examples of other neighbors and their children who had done very well and entered the Indian Administrative Service, the IAS. And so my role models always tended to be the IAS. And so if you like, my childhood dream was to be an IAS officer. And luckily, I've been very fortunate. It was a blessing that I was able to crack the very difficult civil services entrance examination in my very first attempt. And then in my second attempt, I got the All India 14th position to ultimately join the IAS in the Kerala cadre. Although I was a mechanical engineer from BITS Pilani, my optionals were English literature and psychology, in both of which I did extremely well by way of marks in the civil services examination. So I'm very proud of that. So here I am today, 30 years hence into the IAS, but looking back, still very nostalgic and very proud of that achievement of having realized my childhood dream. I was always very, very fond of doing things creative, innovating. So I would be very good at normal, routine activities, but it was really doing something new and innovative, which caught my eye. And, to have an impact, it was not enough for me to rack up marks or rack up, rewards, etc. It was what impact did my actions have on the lives of others around me was what always caught my fancy. And I think this is what really also attracted me to a career in public service. Which gives you a very wide canvas and allows you a scope of control much beyond the office or much beyond what it is that you're exactly delivering. In fact, my very first or second job actually in the IAS was as special officer to set up a new national business school, which was the Indian Institute of Management, the IIM at Calicut in Kerala. Now here I was a lad of just about 26 or 27 years of age, asked to set up a national business school and start the first MBA class for 60 students who were recruited from a national entrance exam, common entrance examination. So as you can imagine, identifying the plot of land, the actual location and site of the institute, getting the master plan ready, the architect's plans, then looking at the first director of the academic director of the institute and the faculty, and actually planning for the entrance examination, which ultimately found the first 60 students who started in temporary facilities was quite an achievement, quite an exercise for me at that age. But building on that, of course, in almost every job in the IAS, and that's the beauty of the IAS, it really is your canvas to paint, and it allows you tremendous opportunity to innovate and to make a difference to others. I could go on and on about the various innovations if you wanted me to do that. Again, that was something which was always a childhood dream, to have a so-called global degree. And what better place than for an international MBA program than London Business School, where we had some 50 nationalities in the class. And it was one of the top 3 or 4 programs in the world. So London was a fantastic experience, truly international classmates. We learned a lot from case studies. And there I got the opportunity to also work in the city of London, which is, as you know, is the primary, apart from New York, it is the prime hub of the international financial sector. And so I worked in the city of London at investment banks, including the Bank of America there. I was introduced to the equity capital markets around the world as an equity investment analyst. Of course, the broad horizon and the overview of the entire globe was something really very precious. Actually, London is really a place after my own heart, and I had a fantastic stint there. But then it came to the end of my sabbatical, my leave of absence from the government of Kerala. And when they asked me to return, I didn't want to sever the link because the IAS was always my childhood dream. So, I was making some excellent, I made a good financial nest egg for myself, but then there were things beyond that. And so I decided to come back to Kerala, which was in hindsight an excellent thing to do because government of Kerala posted me as a district collector in Palghat in the state of Kerala, which was one of the probably the best years of my life in terms of what I was able to do and deliver there, not just innovative work, but also highly impactful stuff in the lives of the ordinary citizen in that district. District collector has, everything under the sun is a collector's responsibility, as we all know, and you have humongous challenges. But some of the interesting things that we did in that year and a half in Palghat was the Asian Development Bank ADB had a modernizing government program for service delivery, and Palghat became the first district in the country out of 650 odd districts. It became the first district in the country to modernize service delivery and make services to the citizen completely computerized. So that was a singular achievement. We also had a major drought in terms of a natural calamity. Now, to challenge the water shortages and to confront some of these challenges that we had, we launched an immense rainwater harvesting program, desilting of ponds and lakes so that the water could be stored better, and that battled the water shortages in the area. That was again a tremendous experience in logistics and pulling all the organs and all the actors on the same stage and addressing problems that the citizens were facing. So that was Palghat. Actually, the common thread which ran through all of these experiences was relating to not only the ordinary person, but also relating to what is the expectation of the world outside of the government and what not to do as a government officer, because I've been on the other side of the fence. And so delivering that straight reply and accountability and transparency in terms of where things are stuck or what can be done, what is feasible, I think that stayed with me throughout. And I like to think of myself, even now when I'm 30 years down the line in the bureaucracy, as somebody who brings that more, within inverted, a private sector mindset to government, and thinking straight, thinking clearly, not confusing issues, and then delivering what is feasible, not just trying to achieve everything under the sun at the same time, but breaking it up into structured portions and then delivering each item one at a time. So this was again in the state of Kerala, where the state of Kerala set up an infrastructure fund which needed to raise resources off the Kerala budget, which had various constraints. So therefore, looking at different ways of and different avenues and sources of raising funds. And one of the interesting ideas that we worked on was raising international funds from the global markets. So Kerala, I'm proud to say, at that time became the first state in the country to get an international rating from S&P and Fitch, which was quite an achievement. And then we were able to target investors in various locations around the world, do road shows, and then finally we had a successful listing for the masala bonds, which are INR denominated global bonds. We listed them on the LSE in London and SGX, and that funneled precious resources from our NRK, the non-resident Keralite population, as well as from institutional investors around the world, into infrastructure development in Kerala. So that was quite an innovative approach. I joined Lehman Brothers was setting up offices in India in Bombay, and so they chose me to set up their equity markets platform, capital markets platform, both for their global research work as well as for the Indian markets. And so I was a managing director at Lehman Brothers, heading this effort for them. And from Lehman, and with no hindsight or with no luck, I mean, in the sense that HSBC approached me in Mumbai, and I joined HSBC just 3 months prior to when Lehman went under. And therefore, I was a managing director at HSBC doing the same thing in their capital markets business. Now, all these experiences at Bank of America in London, and then at Lehman and HSBC in India, turned out to be extremely useful in my future career when I came back to the Ministry of Finance as well. And we were talking about innovations, but using this investment banking experience, I was able to come up with and deliver a lot of things in the Department of Economic Affairs and the Finance Ministry, which made use of this knowledge, if I can say that. It was a difficult decision, but then again, it was not, because even though I was giving up a top dollar salary in India, but again, I did not want to sever the umbilical cord with what had been my childhood dream. It was always, so for my parents and for everybody at home, we come from a provincial town in UP. For everybody at home, you may be earning whatever you are earning, but ultimately it is what you are doing which has a larger social impact that really mattered to them. And so if you like, I was going back to what began as a childhood dream. And it was always at the back of my mind that I had entered the government at a relatively young age. I was 23 years when I joined the IAS. And there was another 20 years to go in my career in the government. And that was a long time to deliver a lot of things which would be in public good, which would allow me to use the financial expertise I had gathered in the capital markets. And indeed, I've been very fortunate. In fact, I'm truly blessed that government has assigned me into positions where I've been able to make use of that knowledge. A lot of the IAS officers, because it is a generalist service, are not as fortunate as I have been. But each assignment that I have had since then in the finance ministry or outside has built upon my experiences. In fact, that was one of the most productive periods of my journey in the IAS. So in the Department of Economic Affairs, I was very lucky to work with the likes of Dr. Raghuram Rajan, who later became the governor of the Reserve Bank of India. And there was a time in 2013 when we were faced with a current account deficit crisis, and the Indian rupee exchange rate was tumbling. And the imperative was for us to find ways to arrest outflows and attract more inflows into the country so that the exchange rate could stabilize. So we worked on a number of things, including getting investments into the country. We simplified the portfolio investment regime for foreign portfolio investors by making it easier for them to enter the country and register. We broadened the framework for ADRs and GDRs. Previously, it used to be only equities as the underlying instrument. We expanded that to include debt and fixed income instruments also as ADR capable instruments. Then we also, and of course, I forget the FCNRB deposit scheme. We came up with a very novel idea to attract dollars from not only our non-resident Indians, but also institutional investors. This was a scheme called the FCNRB deposit scheme, which was later announced by the RBI. But it was very much on the drawing board on my desk in the Department of Economic Affairs, by which we attracted $36 billion at the time of the crisis into the country. And that single scheme was responsible for stabilizing the exchange rate, which I thought at that time was the need of the hour, and it's quite an achievement for us. There was a couple of other instruments that were innovative that we introduced. We worked on a few things that are now probably seeing fruition. For example, we wanted the Indian fixed income, Indian debt to enter global bond indices so that passive fixed income managers from around the world would be able to invest in India. And that would result in a lot of inflows of dollars into the country, which India needs badly. We were also thinking in terms of the International Financial Center, which then came up at Gift City in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. And the whole report for setting up the International Financial Center came up. And then we had to work the rules and regulations for that offshore, for that, within India, but an offshore kind of a location. So I think these were all new ideas which are now seeing the light of day and bearing fruition. Explain that with an example. My current role in the finance ministry in the Department of Banking, Financial Services, is to spearhead financial inclusion in the country. Now, financial inclusion is all about giving access to banking services to those who did not hitherto have access, to giving credit to the hitherto unfunded, and by giving social protection, social security to those who do not have the kind of security nets. Hugely impactful, some of our flagship schemes of the Honorable Prime Minister, for example, the Jan Dhan Yojana, whose 7th anniversary we are observing on the 28th of August, the micro insurance schemes, the Prime Minister Mudra Yojana for credit, small tickets loans. These are all, impactful programs that I'm leading in my current role. Now, they energize me because, the number of lives they impact, the kind of income generation and employment generation activities that these programs support, which was very visible even during the whole pandemic. So last year, when there was a lockdown and there was a COVID crisis, we needed to get urgent relief to the women, in the households, the women account holders of some of these banking programs. So under the Garib Kalyan Yojana, we were able to transfer 500 rupees per month to the women account holders of the Jan Dhan Yojana. And that brought immediate succor to the women account holders. And you can imagine how much it would have helped those at the bottom of the pyramid. And this was all possible because of the Jan Dhan Yojana, the financial inclusion program that our Honorable Prime Minister launched in 2014. And, we have successively built on this program through digitalization, through the Digital India program, through the Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, which we call the JAM Trinity, and then finally on through the various digital payment services. So this is the energizing part to see the impact of that. The challenges really are how to take it to the next level. When you have a program of this size and this impact, what do you do to now enhance financial inclusion to the next stage, which is financial empowerment? It's not just about access and coverage anymore. It's now got to do with financial savings, financialization of savings, about, for example, different milestones in the life of a person. For example, planning for building that home, or daughter's marriage, or saving for old age, the pension schemes, etc. So we are now trying to conceive of a pilot which we have launched in Varanasi district, where we talk about gold-linked savings programs, or a recurring deposit savings program linked to your Jan Dhan accounts, or very interestingly, something that our Honorable Prime Minister launched last year, which is Project Kashi, that is cash over internet, Kashi, where the assessment and appraisal for availing loans is no longer based on collaterals or on external assets. Now it is linked to the direct benefits that you receive in your Jan Dhan account. And based on that assessment of cash inflows into the account, we are able to offer small ticket loans in a very pilot limited way right now, but which will be rolled out across the country. So I think this is the next challenge for us to take it to the higher level. This one's easy because as a student, it's a very competitive world out there. And there'll be a lot of people trying to enter the IAS. But I think it's your single-minded focus and choosing your optionals where you feel that you have an interest, you're passionate about, because you cannot be really that good at something unless you have a real interest in it. So even though I was a mechanical engineer, I chose English literature and psychology as my optionals precisely because I was so interested in Shakespeare, for example, or because, I had excelled in the country at the secondary school level in English literature, and that really paid off. My advice to students is keep it a single-minded focus and do something which you can excel at, because it's not going to be easy to join the IAS. Joining the IAS is only the beginning. It's not easy thereafter. Over a 35, 40-year career, you're under scrutiny at every step by different stakeholders, the public, the media, the political bosses, and you are expected to deliver. So some amount of idealism always pays. It's not something for those who are after materialistic riches or aggrandizement. It is for those who want to render public service and who want an impact of their actions. For me, another prime mover for why I wanted to join the IAS was the immense diversity. I mean, as you and I have discussed today, think of the number of different variety of experiences that I've had, or the number of variety of things that I've been able to do in the government with the wide canvas. This is only possible I mean, I've been in investment banking abroad as well as in India, and I can tell you that no other career other than the IAS allows you this sort of diversity and scope of action at relatively young ages. In some senses, I've been fortunate because I've carved out a niche for myself even within the IAS, which is on the financial sector, in capital markets, in banking. So over the next decade or so, I want to tie up all these experiences together, whether it is from the private sector, international settings, then domestic settings, in the district, in the state, and now in the finance ministry. I see myself increasingly in roles where I can bring all this together and contribute. For example, I was selected as a member of the country's financial capital markets regulator, SEBI, in 2018, but I could not take up that assignment. But in future, I would like to be associated with the capital markets regulator, or who knows, if I get an opportunity to work in the central bank. And these are places where I see myself bringing a lot of value, because I have that hands-on experience in the markets, in the banking system. And a number of times you see when our colleagues from the bureaucracy head to some of these roles, they do not have that first-hand experience or that domain expertise, but they do an excellent job simply because, of their training and of their grounding in the IAS. So I think that is a unique niche that I see for myself as I look forward to the next decade or so of public service in the financial markets in India. My immediate question is, Jeannie, when is this pandemic dying? When do we get rid of COVID? Because it's been very restrictive, not just for us in our personal and social lives, but also the economy. I mean, I know people have lost lives and livelihoods. So we need to repair. There's a huge task of building up what has been lost already. So my first question would be, when do we get back to normalcy, and when do we again go back? Our Prime Minister has given us the vision of a $5 trillion economy in the next few years. And we want to be firmly on the path to working towards that. So that's the first question. The economy, getting people back into their lives, giving them meaningful jobs and support systems for earning their incomes. The second question, of course, would be, what is it that the future has? Because all around us, we are seeing fintechs doing amazing work. We are hearing of developments around cryptocurrency. We are seeing a lot of fintechs in the digital finance world, in payment services, etc. We are seeing a lot happening in electric vehicles and energy. So what does the world and what does India look like 10 years hence? Are we all traveling in a time machine, or what is it? I mean, do we need to come back to offices anymore, or are we just all working virtually from home or otherwise? Those are some of the questions that I would have at the top of my list. For me to say which are the books that I've enjoyed the most is easy, because I could name Vikram Seth, for example, The Golden Gate, which was an iambic tetrameter, which I enjoyed hugely. Poetry poetry in verse and all that. But that was a long time ago. Um, Recently, I read the Silk Roads. The name of the author will come back to me in a minute.
Japan.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. And that really had an impact on me in terms of economic history and how he ties developments around history and around religion with what's happening in the economies of those areas. I think that was a very seminal book as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, there are lots of reading, which, as you know, I realize that as bureaucrats in the government, we get very little time to read other than our file work and other than what relates to our immediate jobs. But I enjoy reading poetry a lot and fiction. So and that always has an impact on me in a creative way.